The three members of this ragtag group of a newly found pirate crew sail towards Lost Camp at full speed, each of them passing the time of their own accord. Monroe builds a mortar on the deck of the Dawn, Bethany builds a workbench where you can fix and or create weaponry, as well as Thomas reliving his time with Shane through catching an ocean bass. Despite this, the new pirate captain struggles with the knowledge of Shane's death and finds himself meditating. On the third night of travel, Luciano calls from a place called Thriller Bark. At this point, he informs Thomas of Kenway's ability as a Zoan Devil Fruit user and warns Thomas to never lose the heart card that Gotti gave him. After a few days of travel, the Dawn finds itself just off the coast of Lost Camp. It's here that they encounter the beast of a brig, Antonio Kenway's flagship, the Terror Incarnate. They attempt to escape from the Terror Incarnate, but things only get worse as they must battle a thunderstorm and rogue waves, all the while dodging the mortar fire raining down from above. Narrowly escaping the dangers of the thunderstorm, the raging waves, and the mortar fire, the crew drop anchor at a sandbar isle nearby. While on the isle, they meet a mysterious woman named Andrew. She informs the party of a festival happening this Friday on Lost Camp, then trades what's left of her supplies to the crew in return for safe passage to the island, since the ship that she was on has been destroyed by the Terror Incarnate. After some time to debate what to do next, they eventually decide to have Monroe build a two-man rowboat to scout out ahead for a safe place to hide the Dawn out of sight. Thomas and Monroe row towards the island, leaving Bethany and Andrew behind. After reaching the forest, together they find a wide river leading to a waterfall. Thomas decides to stay behind as Monroe goes back for the other two, and they're traveling home. However, it seems like there was someone watching as a dart hits Thomas in the chest, and he wakes up 20 minutes later to find himself behind the waterfall in what seems like some kind of hideout for the Libere Luce, the same faction that helped our crew in the fight against Lawlet and Riverstone on Toroa only 10 days ago. Alice and the rest of the freedom fighters around him, he comes to his bearings. In the commotion of seeing their hideout possibly be compromised, the Libere Luce are on high alert. Alice tells Thomas of their leader's pending execution during the festival and asks for his help in saving Sabrina from the clutches of the tyrannical pirate captain Kenway. Thomas speaks with Alice, the second in command of a rattled Libere Luce. He agrees to help in the fight against Kenway, but asks to wait until the rest of his crew arrives to discuss things further. Monroe regroups with Bethany and Andrew at the Dawn. Together they sail the Dawn towards Thomas and the Libere Luce, reconvening at the waterfall. The strange woman, Andrew, leaves the area, but not before dropping a mysterious warning to the new pirate captain Lau of a bounty hunter named Chad. They hide the Dawn underneath the waterfall, where there seems to be a cave hiding the last remnants of the Libere Luce. Here, our crew see the troubled state of their fighting force. They've been fighting Kenway for years, and now their numbers have dwindled to just under 25 rebels. Alice and Pablo make the crew promise not to kill any of the infantry of the Moonlight Pirates. After all, they're only fighting under Kenway due to his grip over the island and live under Kenway's thumb just as much as the citizens. She then goes over the plan Sabrina and her cooked up before Sabrina was captured, called Kenway's Downfall. The plan is set, except to use the Dawn as part of Phase 3. Unfortunately, if they plan on using the Dawn for this battle, it's going to need to be upgraded to withstand the challenges of a naval encounter. Fortunately, they can use the resources from the Frontora district to help with that. The Frontora district also has supplies they can use to create a bomb to use as the linchpin of the entire plan to destroy the Terror Incarnate, the symbol of Kenway's oppression. Zoe, aka B7, calls into question Alice's leadership by bringing to light all the challenges they've had to endure for this long. Thomas delivers the plan with Alice to the Libere Luce, and together they rally them for one last battle. The battle for the freedom of Lost Camp on Friday during the festival. The next day, Wednesday, our party leave the hideout and travel with some of the Libere Luce to the Frontora district as planned. Unplanned, however, it seems the Moonlight Pirates have set up an inspection at the gate to the city. Monroe is stopped for inspection. If his mink body is seen by the inspection, all could be lost. But luckily, the line becomes too impatient and Monroe is let off without incident. Now in the city, everyone splits up, each going to their respective shops. There are some close calls with the Moonlight Pirates and the Warriors of Toroa. But with luck, there's no incident and everyone is able to buy what they came for and head back to the hideout. Notably, Pablo, aka A7's team, did not return with the rest of the group. Back at the hideout, Bethany explains what he was able to acquire, setting all the supplies of the day on the deck of the Dawn. The rest of Wednesday and all of Thursday, Monroe upgrades the Dawn's hull and ram. He does this with the help of 3 Libre Luce. Around midnight on Wednesday, A7 and his team come back to the hideout. They explain that they had to escape through the sewers to keep their cover. A7's team was tasked by Alice with infiltrating the black market and acquiring 4 artificial gills to use on Friday for the infiltration team. On Thursday, Armando, one of the Libre Luce, arrives in the hideout with the news coup. Notably, it speaks of a girl, Emily Gordon, the sister of a known criminal, Luciano of the Shadow. The threat of her execution by Emperor Khan of Kano country is intended to draw out Luciano from hiding. With only 2 hours left on the final upgrade to the Dawn, the voice of a screaming boy being tortured is heard throughout the forest. Alice sprints out of the cave with tears in her eyes. It's revealed that the Moonlight Pirates, and more specifically Riverstone, are in possession of Alice's nephew, Angel. Riverstone's laugh echoes through the forest alongside the screams of the boy Angel. Thomas leaves with Pablo to attempt a rescue of the innocent child. This leaves our delinquent to end up sprinting throughout the forests of Las Pozas in the dead of night, with Riverstone chasing him with a band of Moonlight Pirates just behind him. After a close call with the Psycho and his forces, Thomas makes his way back to the hideout, where he meets up with a rattled A7 who explains why he couldn't save Angel. All the while, Monroe and the 3 Libre Luce wrap up work on the final upgrade to the Dawn's hull. After this, Monroe and Bethany work together to create a bomb needed to blow the Terra Incarnate sky high. Meanwhile, Thomas trains with Armando, aka B4. He starts the training session with Thomas on a strange note, attacking Thomas with intent to hurt, despite Thomas telling him not to. However, everyone is ready for the big day tomorrow, and the next morning comes. Nerves are through the roof, and the misfit Libre Luce Alliance go over the final touches to the plan, and everyone gets into place. Thomas informs his crew that whatever happens, the priority is to take down the Terra Incarnate. Alice rallies the rebels, and together they set out. Thomas leaves with the ground team after loading his one and only Seastone bullet into the chamber of his gun. Monroe and Bethany show the Libre Luce around the Dawn how to operate the ship and arm them for the coming battle. Soon the Dawn sets sail and the ground team make a detour through the sewers, knocking out many Moonlight Pirates along the way and stealing their outfits. With only 1 hour left until execution, Thomas makes his way through the crowd. He blends in as a Moonlight Pirate. Bethany and Monroe bring the Dawn in close enough for Monroe to see with a spyglass what's going on, while keeping the ship far enough away not to be seen. He also catches a glimpse of a commotion going on underwater near the ship. It seems like the infiltration team is having some kind of trouble. Only 30 minutes left, with Sabrina in sight awaiting her death. The bomb that was the linchpin of the whole plan does not go off. Riverstone of the Black Marble steps onto the deck of the Terra Incarnate. He gives a speech to the people of Lost Camp, speaking how the Libre Luce have been tracked down to the forests of Las Pozas. Then he gives Sabrina a chance to speak her final words. She attempts to instill hope into the hearts of the people, but with the revelation of the former president's death and her father, she goes quiet and the hatchet is raised high into the sky. Acting fast, with no time to lose, the Dawn is in full sail, charging directly for the Terra Incarnate. Monroe orders a mortar shot to be released, and this distracts Riverstone long enough for an arrow to pierce through his arm, causing him to drop the hatchet. All the while, Alice and Thomas move throughout the crowd. Alice gives a speech of her own to the citizens of Lost Camp, pleading with them to join their cause. At just that moment, the Dawn rams into the side of Antonio Kenway's flagship, giving a rise of discord among the citizens to flee in fear. Then the Dawn turns, and both ships open fire on one another. A volley of cannon fire is traded between the ships. This causes the Dawn to disengage from the mountain of damage done to the newly upgraded hull. The ground team seize this opportunity and board the enemy vessel, making their assault in the commotion. With the Terra Incarnate pushed onto the shore, it has no ability to sail. However, this does not mean safety for the naval team aboard the Dawn, as just then, enemy reinforcements arrive. It's George's flagship, the Vine. It carries not only the jungle pirates led by Gallows George, but the warriors of Taroa, led by the tamer Lawlet. Back on the Terra Incarnate, after failing to push Riverstone into the water, Thomas meets the man running the show behind the curtain, the leader responsible for all the people in his way, Captain Antonio Kenway. He unleashes a burst of Conqueror's Haki on everyone in the surrounding area. Only Thomas and Sabrina are able to withstand the presence of his force of will. Everyone else is either dazed or unconscious. Kenway speaks with Thomas, going on to question about the clan of D, and the two of them begin to exchange words. Antonio instigates Thomas, speaking of his former mentor, Shane Villeneuve, and his former captain, Tess. This enrages Thomas as he draws both of his swords, watching as Kenway transforms into a large creature, his hybrid Zoan form. Thomas tries to attack, but is immediately shut down as he's kicked into the railing of the Terra Incarnate at what feels like lightning speed. Kenway now stands over Thomas, ready to strike. At this moment, the Dawn rams headfirst into the Vine, causing a massive collision between the ships. In the chaos of the ship ram, Monroe is revealed to the man sitting in the opposing ship's crow's nest. It's Lollet. He expresses a face full of sorrow as he aims down the barrel of a rifle on Monroe. The battle for the freedom of Lost Camp rages on. The naval team trade a volley of cannon fire with the enemy vessel, deciding to board in the chaos, catching the enemies off guard. Aboard the Vine, the Libre Luce battle the infantry of the Jungle Pirates and Warriors of Taroa. In the meantime, Bethany and Monroe pursue the officers, George and Lollet. Monroe climbs the rat rope, closing the distance on Lollet, but is powerless to keep the pressure on as he escapes to the mizzenmast. Monroe is able to take out an unexpected enemy, a sugar glider by the name of Meringue, quickly moving to engage on Lollet, however unable to cross the tightrope connecting the crow's nest to the mizzenmast. Monroe finds himself dangling from the vessel's rope. While hanging for his life, Monroe can overhear mention of a Moonlight Pirate outpost near the comm belt holding some secret Kenway was trying to control, along with all the doctors he kidnapped. This mention is the least of Monroe's concern, as a shot from Lollet causes him to lose the grip he has on the rope and fall to the poop deck below. Monroe heals with Bethany using gold herbs, then joins the fight once more, bringing about a modified swivel that he uses against the enemy forces after convincing the Libre Luce to fight just a bit longer, while at the same time Bethany is pushing George on the name of the island concerning the kidnapped friend of his, Rosie. Rosie being the same person that healed Bethany and Thomas back in episode 1. It's not enough though, as the enemies storm the Libre Luce, and George regroups with his crew, but not before giving a cryptic message about the longevity of Captain Kenway. Unbeknownst to the enemy, as the Libre Luce dive into the water, Bethany uses this time to cover the Libre Luce's retreat through jerking the helm to the side, but simultaneously giving our delinquents little chance to escape. The Misfits temporarily unlock something within themselves, making their final stand by damaging George greatly, but are soon overrun and defeated. After the dust is settled, Monroe and Bethany awake to find themselves captured and awaiting the arrival of the Terra Incarnate. Lollet approaches, engaging in a conversation with the Muscle and Banana Men. He seems to be rather talkative, revealing the reasons behind his involvement in this battle and his history with Monroe dropping the name of a powerful slave trader in Kano country known as Dullahain. As Lollet remembers his brother-in-arms, Kita, a ship pulls up next to the Vine. It's the Terra Incarnate. Meanwhile, while this battle raged aboard the Vine, another battle was raging aboard the Terra Incarnate. The ground team aboard the Terra Incarnate, Lau finds himself locked in a conflict with Kenway, while Riverstone, along with the Moonlight Pirates, focus on getting the ship back into the water. Thomas heads to the observatory, and with Sabrina's weapons, confronts Kenway as he speaks of Thomas's family ties. After returning Sabrina her equipment, her peerless cuffs are quickly broken and she joins the fight. However, everyone can feel the ship entering the water, heading towards the Vine. With Kenway engaging on Thomas and the Libre Luce around him, suddenly a figure jumps from the tops of the ship, dealing damage to the primal monster. Face hidden beneath a helmet, a bow can be seen at their back. They introduce themselves using a strange voice to be the Wandering Warden, there for the head of Riverstone of the Black Marble, to which throws Kenway and Thomas into confusion. The Wandering Warden makes a strange comment about Thomas's sword being made with bad metal, to which Thomas responds to this with renewed interest in hand-to-hand fighting, tossing his swords aside. All the while, the Libre Luce, led by Sabrina, take on Riverstone and the full brunt of the Moonlight Pirates. Kenway kicking the Warden into the side of the ship, knocking some sense into them regarding the identity of the target they're pursuing to not be that of Riverstone. Realizing this, they decide to leave the battle entirely. Kenway reminisces over the past where he battled the Hook Pirates alongside his former captain, Orbit. While battling Sabrina, Riverstone mentions his poison no longer affects the Libre Luce like it used to. Kenway touts his new upgrades to the Terra Incarnate being of more importance than dealing with this impending rebellion. All this time, Alice has been searching for her nephew Angel, and finally reveals herself to the whole ship standing on the mizzenmast with the boy Angel tied up above her. She pleads once more with the Moonlight Pirates, but is cut off by a former Libre Luce, who speaks of the Libre Luce as the reason his sister is now deceased. Pressing a button, Kenway cuts the rope holding Angel, causing him to fall. In this split moment, Alice jumps from the mizzenmast, calling for her sister, who saves Angel with her spear that cuts the rope, allowing Alice to grab Angel and take the damage from the fall. A burning rage flowing through him, Thomas temporarily unlocks something within himself. Captain Kenway transforms once more into a new form, changing into his beast form and therefore taking the fight seriously. A renewed determination from Thomas's declaration of a desperate anger gives Sabrina and the Libre Luce the strength to keep fighting just a little bit longer, and under the realization things might not end well, Sabrina pushes her son, along with her sister, into the water. Due to the extreme circumstances, Thomas finds it within himself to use his conqueror's hockey in a clash of will between the two of them, and with him slowly winning, the forces of the Moonlight Pirates are turned away by Kenway, seeing it as a weakness to need them. It's not enough though, as just before any of her forces could lose their lives in this brawl, Sabrina offers her life in exchange for the Libre Luce's lives. Thomas declares he's going to win and be Pirate King despite losing to Kenway's ultimate technique, Stampede of Destruction. Thomas wakes to find himself captured with A7 and B4 stepping onto the Terra Incarnate. It's revealed that Armando was acting as a rat for Kenway. However, the bomb and the detonator are still nowhere to be found. The Terra Incarnate pulling up next to the vine. Kenway takes Thomas and Sabrina along with him as he jumps over. Finally regrouped with his crew, the four of them lay tied up and defeated. The various enemies they've encountered up until this point stand before them gathered together, outnumbered, weakened, and alone. The alliance is in shambles. Kenway turns over the briefcase filled with 10 million berry to Lawlet, and our crew are about to be executed when Monroe makes a deal with Kenway, saving his crew's lives but cannot save Sabrina's. The leader of the Libre Luce, and the reason this battle took part in the first place, is about to be gunned down. Just when all seems for nothing and the execution of Sabrina before our crew's eyes, the tides of the battle shift one by one as each domino falls. Pablo is shot by George, fatally wounding him but bringing him close enough to the boys for what's to come. Rocks are thrown onto the vine, carrying the hopes of the people with them. Leading the pack is Alice and Angel, who unites the people under the banner of the Libre Luce, freeing the spirits of the Moonlight Pirates from the reign of Antonio Kenway as they lay down their weapons, distracting the beast long enough for Lawlet to switch sides, dealing a massive blow to Kenway, declaring his newfound allegiance. While chaos ensues with mortar fire raining down from above, Lawlet takes his time to free the misfits from their binds. Monroe takes the detonator from Pablo as he gives his final words, speaking of his son. Now with the detonator in hand, Monroe sets off the bomb, causing the Terra Incarnate to begin sinking. Then with a massive shake of the ship, the Dawn, piloted by Zoe, slams into the side of the vine. With George fighting a newfound ally in Lawlet, Kenway takes Sabrina with him to the sinking Terra Incarnate, where he does battle with a healed up Thomas and Monroe, while Bethany takes control of the Dawn and fights Riverstone along with the Moonlight Pirate loyalists. After a long drawn out battle, Thomas uses a Seastone bullet to end the tyranny of Antonio Kenway, removing his ability to continue the fight. In his final moments, Thomas and Monroe spend a few minutes with the dying captain. They learn of a strange mutation in Kenway's body, and the lighter in Thomas's possession to be originally that of Plush Kenway, Antonio's daughter. As the Dawn sails away with our two figures in tow, in his last action, Captain Kenway informs Thomas of a man named Osiris, who is rumored to have the color of the Supreme King, in return for giving his daughter a ring. And as the grand ship known as the Terra Incarnate sinks beneath the waves, Kenway chooses to spend his last words speaking of a fairy tale from a long forgotten time, the romance Twilight. In the end, Captain Antonio Kenway draws his last breath as he slowly sinks to the bottom of the Lost Camp Harbor, the captain going down with the ship. Finally aboard the Dawn, after a long drawn-out battle, death on both sides, and injuries galore, an unexpected enemy turned ally climbs aboard the Dawn and makes his apology known to the crew, and especially to Monroe. Lawlet offers the likely location of where Gallows George is escaping to, a place called Pride Falls. The battle for the freedom of Lost Camp now behind our heroes, they sail back to the harbor. Meanwhile, they interact with the fighters of the battle, paying their respects to Sabrina for the loss of Pablo, aka A7. Lawlet gives Monroe a Denden Mushi that is able to connect directly to the slave trader Dullahain, but only while within Kano country. Another present, Monroe receives a gift card from the naval team to a restaurant called Banana D's, located on Tokojo, an island near Kano country. At the same time, Thomas pushes Riverstone for more information, only receiving a hint towards his past. Nearly at the harbor, Bethany falls ill to a poison inflicted on him by Riverstone during the fight for the Dawn. Luckily, Anna, one of the Libre Luce, injects him with the same injection that another Libre Luce, Maria, gave Thomas on Toroa, saving Bethany from the poison and giving Monroe the same shot as a precaution for the future. Finally, at the harbor, a reunion between family occurs as Alice and Sabrina's son board the Dawn. Together with the freedom fighter sisters, you three address the citizens of a freed Lost Camp. Alice calls on you, and each of you are given an epithet as you stand visible to the hundreds of people: the Monkey, Mighty Bethany, and Misfit Lau. Initially, they discount you due to your nature as pirates, but with the credibility from the Libre Luce sisters, they soon come to accept you. Alice is informally established as the president of Lost Camp, with her vice president and sister, Sabrina. Riverstone declares his continued loyalty to Kenway's ideals through preaching cryptic warnings of the world government and their soon-to-be threat to Lost Camp's newfound freedom. The new president decides it best, even through disagreement by the people. Nicholas, aka Riverstone of the Black Marble, will not be executed and instead turned over to the world government. Once again, Thomas pushes the captured pirate for answers, finally getting something out of him, a place he spent years alone in called the Bermuda Square. Her second act as president, Alice, after grieving for the loss of her close friend and ally, decides it best to commission a statue for the fallen hero, then to continue the festival with a feast tonight, declaring January 23rd to be Lost Camp Liberation Day. Everyone but the crew leave the Dawn, and the delinquents are invited to the feast. With just the boys on the ship now, Thomas shows Bethany and Monroe the information gathered from Gotti's secret room under Kita's bar. Forming a plan, they want to learn more about this place called Thriller Bark, calling Luciano only to get a single phrase out of him before the call abruptly ends. Once things are decided, they head out, looking for a mapmaker, but instead find a super fan of Monroe, who helped deliver the wood needed to patch up the Dawn. The ship now fixed, Alice comes into view, telling them about a place in the city where they can buy clothes and get washed up called the Got. There they get to know each other a bit more while in the onsen and purchase clothes for tonight's party. Notably, it's shared that Monroe's homeland to be that of an elephant. Thomas and Bethany revealing women that are important in their lives, named Jessica and Lacey, Jessica being an alias of Plush Kenway, Antonio's daughter. Finally, learning that George once helped Bethany hide away when he first entered the West Blue. This was before George lost a battle to Kenway. Making your way back to the Dawn, you cross a club called the Weeb Taku. Here, Thomas sees the cheerleader woman Andrew that they rescued when they first arrived on Lost Camp only 3 days ago. She's performing as a background dancer on stage for a woman singer named Lady Cherry. After this, you regroup and head to the city hall for the feast. However, with so many people attending the party, it gets too tiring to wait for the line to move, so you look around for a shortcut, resulting in making yourselves late and crashing through the storage room while Alice finishes her speech. During the party, everyone has a good time. Monroe eats until he falls asleep, Bethany wears a pink bedazzled Speedo, and Thomas learns a bit of Alice's culture, among other things. Alice loosens up maybe a bit too much, Sabrina keeps her head on straight, showing up late, and Lawlet rebrands the Warriors of Toroa to the Tamers of the West Blue. As the party concludes, a group picture is taken by a man with a long nose named Pin. Finally, the crew fall asleep. The next morning, after some wacky dreams, the crew goes shopping, attaining some things they need for their journey, then they make their way back to the current leaders of Lost Camp. With a new map, courtesy of Sabrina, the crew learn of a dangerous sea called the Bermuda Square, the same sea mentioned by Riverstone, prompting a swift interrogation of the former pirate. Threatening Nicholas's life, the two of you learn of a man even more dangerous than Kenway, Koga. Mentioning this mysterious person's name in front of Alice, you learn the possibility of him being a warlord. The three misfits come to an agreement, deciding against stealing the prisoner of war, Kenway's former right-hand man. With business on Lost Camp finished, it's time to set sail. Waiting for you as you reach your ship is Lawlet, who leaves you a cryptic message, chocolate, a single word to deliver to Kita if you happen to see him again. Seeing you off before you go, Sabrina leaves you a Denden Mushi to keep in contact with her and by extension, Lost Camp, while also serving as a favor to contact them if you happen to find out what happened to the 22 people that were aboard the Lost Camp Sakura Odyssey. While in the Lost Camp harbor, Bethany decides it best to dive down into the wreckage of the Terra Incarnate. He surfaces sometime later with a few things in tow: Thomas's sword, a blueprint from Monroe, and a very small amount of sea stone to use in the foraging of Thomas's weapon request. The island and arc of Lost Camp and the metaphorical rearview mirror of the Dawn, the crew set a course for Thriller Bark, located within the Bermuda Square. Over the course of the nautical travel, the crew get into a somewhat rhythm of changing shifts manning the Dawn, using their free time, and sleeping. However, a few oddities occur as they sail. Luciano isn't responding on the Dendenmushi. Monroe and Bethany fight off an undead teenage girl. Thomas reels in a message in a bottle with a cryptic warning concerning someone named Jill C. Anderson. A thick fog casts over the dawn as the ship sails past a lighthouse in the sea of zero visibility. A storm rages unlike any other storm the crew has dealt with. They navigate through a maze of water spouts. Finally, with the island of Thriller within sight, it sits inside the eye of a storm. The dawn sails closer to Thriller, stopping at a schooner where you reunite with a woman from Coral Town, Olivia. Her ship of researchers was ransacked by one man. His goal in hijacking her ship and forcing them to sail out here is clear: to use the map he stole from Olivia's possession in order to retrieve a devil fruit hidden away on Thriller.